Now, to help us further break down Yahoo's numbers and its advertising business, I want to bring in Piper Jaffray, Senior Research Analyst Gene Munster. He's been covering Yahoo since 2007 and has a neutral rating on the shares. He joins us now from Minneapolis. So, Gene, Corey couldn't do it, but what was the best thing you heard in this conference call or saw in this conference call today, Gene?
Well, he said it, but kind of indirectly. It was the 21% click growth, which kind of plays in this whole engagement, which is really what Marissa is essentially saying, is that let's focus first on engagement and second on revenue, and revenue hasn't happened. Unfortunately, investors like to think of revenue and earnings first, but ultimately, I think that was probably the big positive here.
So all things considered then, what stands out to you in these numbers? I mean, is this a good or bad year for Marissa Mayer?
Yeah, I don't think it's a good year. I think that she's done a lot for the stock, and you have to give her a ton of credit for energizing really a broken business. But if you look at some of the core metrics, what Yahoo has at its core is display, and mobile plays around that, and search really isn't their core business. And that display number down 11% was unchanged from down 11% in March and down 5% in December and flat last September. And so that trend is not a very exciting trend. And you have to give some leeway here because their focus has been engagement, which that has proven. But there are also some big headwinds around revenue, in particular programmatic buying, which is basically more exchanges, which gives some of the efficiencies and the pricing advantage to advertisers versus people like Yahoo.
So if you could give her a grade, Gene, what would it be?
I would give her a B+, and I would say that...
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Well, I think a B+ based on really what the stock has done, that's a big part of it. I think if you just look at the core fundamentals, it's probably more like a B-. I don't know if that's bad or good, but she's done a lot. I still think that this display number, we have to give her credit for what she's accomplished. I still think the display number is something, as to their own point, needs addressing.
Okay, so she's talked a lot about wanting to make users' daily habits part of her strategy to get people coming to Yahoo on a daily basis. Is that enough for you? Do you want to see more? Do you want to see more of a concrete strategy from her?
Well, I think, something around, is it going to be content-driven? I mean, they've talked a lot about products, so that would be nice to know. There was questions on the call about how much they're going to be spending on video content, for example. Ultimately, what they have is content today. I mean, that's really what Yahoo is content, and they need to have more of that content. They talked about having some unique content around Saturday Night Live and things like that. So I think to answer your questions, we always want more details. At least they're thematically talking about the right things, which is focus on revenue growth now, so we should start to see some of that improvement, or hope to see some of that. And so I guess to answer your question is we got some framework. There's some missing pieces, and ultimately the trend has not been very friendly around that important display number.
She did talk a lot about, look out for them to make more investments in video and video content. Speaking of video, what did you think of the earnings video cast?
I guess I was in your camp. I really liked it. I thought it showed, the ability to show things. I didn't really see it as a distraction, but I kind of saw it as a good way to make their point, really bring their point home, because a lot of times you don't see all the nuances of those products. And so I hope other companies do it, and I bet they will.
So looking forward, she also talked about acquisitions. She said they're going to continue to make smaller acquisitions, things like Tumblr, not necessarily acquisitions that big, but some of these smaller manquisitions. And it was interesting to hear her talk about how she's incorporating these new employees into the company. But how do we know for sure that these people are going to stay long term? And how do we know that they're as personally invested in Yahoo as they were at their former companies?
Well, in Tumblr's case, they paid cash, and so that is it's hard to keep people around when they've already been paid out. I don't know what some of the details around some of their retention is, but so I think that is a difficult one. As you mentioned, they're going to do more acquisitions, but they're not going to be big acquisitions, so they're going to be smaller ones. And that is, I think, one thing that Marissa has done well in general is on the retention side, is that they gave a graph in terms of this dramatic improvement in the number of people who want to work at Yahoo. And so it's a big question you're asking. It's a question that a lot of companies struggle with. And I think in Yahoo's case is at least we don't know the answer of how they're going to do that, but at least it's been a lot better today than it was 12 months ago. That's for sure.
Or as she called it, she said there's been an internal renaissance at Yahoo. Piper Jaffray's Gene Munster, thanks as always for joining us today to break down Yahoo's latest numbers here on Bloomberg West.